Hi everyone, Peter here with TheReadingTutors.com. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of our reading blog. Today I would like to talk about reading comprehension difficulties. Reading comprehension difficulties are very common in students who have trouble reading and reading difficulties, and also sometimes even with students who read very well. We also see students who read fluently and don't seem to have reading problems that have difficulty with reading comprehension as well. And I would like to try to shed some light today on the different elements that can cause difficulty with reading comprehension. This is something that we deal with a lot in our online tutoring program because it is something that can be very difficult for students. So, first of all, one of the main things that can cause difficulty with reading comprehension is, are reading accuracy issues. If you've watched our other videos, you might have heard me mention reading accuracy issues before. And of course, that just simply means that a student is not reading what they're supposed to be reading accurately. We see a variety of reading accuracy percentages with students. Some students may read at 90%, 80%, 70%. But reading accuracy can cause huge problems with reading comprehension. Let me give you an example why. If a student is reading a paragraph, you may have them start at the beginning, go all the way to the end, and if their reading accuracy is not good, they're probably going to be misreading something in every sentence. They might be misreading multiple things in each sentence. For example, if we have a student who reads at maybe 70% accuracy and they're reading a sentence in that paragraph, they may mix up words, they may insert words that are not there, they may drop words out of the sentence or conjugate verbs the wrong way, so they end up with a different meaning in the sentence. And so all these things are going to lead to them not having a good sense of what that sentence just told them. And if we take these problems that we've seen in a single sentence and multiply them throughout, say, a full paragraph or a whole passage, maybe they're reading a reading comprehension passage that's 6 paragraphs long, 7 paragraphs, 8 paragraphs, this is going to lead to all sorts of problems with their comprehension, because when they get to the end and they're asked to respond to what they read, either in written form or in verbal form, they're going to have all kinds of trouble with this because they have not been reading things accurately, I should say, and as a result, they're not going to have good comprehension of what they just read. So this is a really big problem, and this is something that we see a lot in students with reading difficulties. So if a student has reading difficulties and reading accuracy difficulties, they're typically going to have issues with comprehension as a result of those reading accuracy issues. Now, you might have seen me mention this in a previous video. If you're wondering if your child has reading accuracy issues, that is one of the really big symptoms of reading difficulties, and you might want to try to get them extra help if they do have some of these symptoms. A good way to check that out is just to have them read something out loud for you. So go ahead and give them something that should be around their grade level. Have them read it out loud, maybe a full paragraph or a couple pages out of a book. And you're going to immediately notice whether they're having reading accuracy issues. If they're having reading accuracy issues, they may skip words, add little words in there that aren't there, leave little words out that are supposed to be in the sentence. They might completely change the sentence and change multiple words, in fact, ignore punctuation, all different things like that lead to poor reading accuracy. Another problem that can lead to reading comprehension issues is a poor knowledge of vocabulary. This is a huge issue and something very common in students who have reading comprehension difficulty. And of course, we can immediately realize why poor vocabulary would lead to comprehension issues. Because if a student doesn't know what certain words mean, well then of course they're not going to have a good understanding of what a sentence means or what a full paragraph or passage means, because they're not going to know a lot of words that are contained in there. Now, interestingly, when we think about reading, vocabulary issues, we often think, I would say, of higher level vocabulary. Maybe vocabulary that is a bit of a reach for students, words they may have not seen before, words that may be new to them. However, poor vocabulary can involve a lot of really basic words that people see on a regular basis also. And particularly in students with reading comprehension difficulty, you're going to see this present a lot. And this typically is a result of reading accuracy issues and reading difficulties. So let me tell you how we've seen this work with some of our students. In students that have reading difficulties, of course, reading is a laborious process for them. And as a result, they tend to not read much, first of all. And also, they probably have if they have reading difficulties, they have reading accuracy issues. Reading is one of the primary ways that we learn new words and absorb the meanings, and also learn the different nuances of that word and how the word can be used in sentences and paragraphs. For students who have reading difficulties, they don't get that basic vocabulary in those foundational years, such as first grade, second grade, third grade, because they're having so much trouble with their reading. And as a result, these difficulties tend to just mount up and multiply as they get older, because they don't have a good sense of the basic vocabulary, and as they get older, they're introduced to more difficult vocabulary. They start to have more difficult reading, of course, because the level of the reading has increased, and their comprehension just gets worse and worse as a result of this. So that is why it's really good even to ask a student about basic vocabulary. Sometimes in our online tutoring program, reading tutoring program, we'll be doing a comprehension passage with a student, and we'll realize that they just read something that they don't understand well. The sentence might not contain any high-level vocabulary. It might be just basic vocabulary, but from the way the student read it, we still realize they don't really have a good sense of what that just means, or maybe we ask them what that sentence means. And sometimes we'll go back and we'll say, well, hey, do you know what this word means? They might say, well, yeah, and give us the definition. Then we'll ask them about another common word, and they have no idea what that word means. Even though it's very common and very widespread in its usage, they might not know what it means. So of course, you look at this, consider what a large negative effect this will have on reading comprehension, and you can see why this is such a big issue. Okay, another problem is the fact that students with reading difficulties often are not in the habit of reading for content. Reading has been so difficult for them over the years, especially if they're still at a point where they haven't gotten extra reading help in a reading tutoring program or some sort of reading treatment program. As a result, reading is still difficult for them and very laborious, and when they read, it's so difficult for them that they focus really hard on decoding the words that they're reading. They're just simply focused on trying to sound this word out and that word out and move along in the sentence. But when they get to the end of that sentence or the end of that passage, they don't really know what they've just read because they've been focusing so much on just reading the words and decoding the words. And it's exhausting as a result. They usually get to the end of the passage and they're tired, but they don't know what they just read because they haven't been reading for content. And interestingly, we even find this in students who have fairly good reading. Sometimes the students who have good reading now have gotten to that point because they've gotten extra help with reading tutoring, and they've gotten to a point where they're reading pretty well. Their reading fluency is pretty good. They're able to sound things out well. They're moving along very well with their reading and their spelling. However, they're still having comprehension issues. And if a student has pretty good reading fluency, but they're having all kinds of comprehension issues, this can often be the culprit. Since they previously had reading difficulties, they never got in the habit of paying attention to the content. They were so focused on decoding words and just moving along with the words and trying to read everything accurately that they haven't been paying attention to what the content of what they're reading is. And this can continue even after their reading has improved and has gotten much better. So this is something that we work on a lot during reading tutoring, because it's something that can definitely be improved with practice, and something that can be addressed by giving the students certain techniques. And in the next video, actually, I'm going to be talking about some of those techniques to improve reading comprehension. Finally, another issue that can cause problems with reading comprehension is anxiety. For students who have reading difficulties, reading causes a lot of anxiety. It may cause more anxiety as they get older if they haven't had their reading difficulties addressed, because they may have all kinds of memories of failing on reading comprehension tests. being embarrassed about their reading abilities, having to read out loud and not being able to do it very well, and all kinds of different things like this. And these can all sort of pile up in a child and make them very, very anxious every time they have to read. If they're anxious when they're reading, chances are they're not going to comprehend what they're reading very well. It can interfere with their reading comprehension. So I'm going to address that in the next video as well, and give you some tips on how you can help them alleviate that anxiety and comprehend what they're reading in a much better way. So thanks for tuning in today. If you like our videos, please subscribe. We'd love to have more subscribers. You can find out more about our online reading tutoring program at www.TheReadingTutors.com. You can also find all kinds of more information about reading difficulties there. So definitely pay us a visit if you like. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you'd like to set up a free trial, go ahead and you can go to our website and send us an email, and we can get that set up for you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them here. I always love to respond to your questions. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.